What if I told you there was a secret cult not built around a vampire, a warlord, or a tyrant but a queen? A Russian Tsarina worshipped like a saint, some say like a god. And behind this worship lies death, blood, and mystery. Welcome to a story most people have never heard, a story buried deep beneath Russia's royal palaces and the cold stone walls of its darkest prisons. In this video, we dive into the strange world surrounding Tsarina Alexandra, wife of the last Russian Tsar. You'll discover how mysticism, tragedy, and Rasputin's strange powers helped build a loyal following, even after the royal family's brutal execution. But this isn't just history. Even today, long after her death, there are people who see her not as a fallen empress, but as a holy martyr. Some even believe she was chosen by God. So, what's true? What's legend? And how did a queen become the center of a hidden death cult? Stick with us to the end, because we'll reveal how the cult survived the fall of the empire. Why some modern Russians still worship her in secret, and what this strange belief tells us about power, pain, and faith. This is not the story you were taught in school. This is the hidden side of the Romanov you were never meant to know. Welcome to History Screen. If you love forgotten tales, hidden truths, and dramatic history, make sure to subscribe and tap the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Now, let's begin. Before she was known as a mystical figure, a tragic empress, or the center of a cult, Alexandra Fyodorovna was just a shy, uncertain woman far from home. Born as Princess Alex of Hessen, Germany, she was the granddaughter of Queen Victoria. Her early life was filled with royalty, yes, but also with grief. She lost her mother at the age of 6. That sadness never quite left her when she married Nicholas II, the last Tsar of Russia. She stepped into a world she didn't fully understand. The Russian court was cold, strict, and suspicious of outsiders. Many nobles never accepted her. She felt isolated, misunderstood, and judged, and in that loneliness, she turned inward to faith, to symbols, to signs. Alexandra wasn't raised Orthodox, but she converted to marry Nicholas. Yet she took that religion deeper than anyone expected. She didn't just believe, she clung to it. And when her only son Alexei was born with a deadly blood disease, hemophilia, her fear turned into desperation. Here enters the figure who would change everything. Grigory Rasputin, a wandering peasant, a so-called holy man, a healer, or a fraud depending on who you ask. But one thing is clear: when Rasputin came to the palace, Alexei's bleeding seemed to stop. Maybe it was prayer, maybe hypnosis, maybe luck. But to Alexandra, it was a miracle. From that moment on, she trusted him more than her own advisors, more than the nobility, perhaps even more than her husband. Her faith in Rasputin wasn't just about healing. It was about hope. He gave her the feeling that someone or something was watching over her family, that her suffering had a purpose, that their throne could be saved. But this faith came with a cost. Rasputin was no quiet monk. He drank, he partied, and rumors spread like wildfire. People whispered about dark rituals, about control, even seduction. The Tsarina, they said, had fallen under his spell. Whether true or not, it changed how Russia saw her. To many, she was no longer just a German empress. She was the woman who brought a mad mystic into the heart of the empire. A woman willing to believe anything to save the people she loved. He came from nothing, born in a tiny Siberian village called Pokrovskoye Grigory. Rasputin was the son of a peasant. No one expected anything from him. He didn't go to school. He didn't learn to read until much later in life. But what he had was presence, a strange power, eyes that could lock into you and make you feel like he knew something you didn't. In his early years, Rasputin wandered. He joined religious pilgrimages, lived with monks, and began preaching his own form of spiritual healing. He didn't follow rules. He claimed that sin, especially sins of the flesh, was a path to salvation. To be pure, he believed, one had to first fall, and so began whispers of secret rituals, of strange gatherings where pleasure and pain were mixed with prayer. Some said Rasputin led a sex cult. Others believed he had the power to heal with just his hands or his stare. His name began to spread, reaching the highest circles of Russian aristocracy. By 1905, Rasputin had made his way to St. Petersburg, the heart of the empire. That's where he met Tsarina Alexandra. Her son Alexei, the heir to the throne, suffered from hemophilia, a deadly blood disease. Doctors had no cure, but Rasputin. Rasputin prayed and the boy got better, not once, but multiple times, and that was enough to the Tsarina. Rasputin wasn't just a healer. He was a holy man sent by God, a protector, a guide. She clung to him like a lifeline, and soon he was always near advising her, comforting her, even influencing state matters, while Nicholas II was away at war. But not everyone believed in miracles. Many in the Russian court despised him. The press painted him as a madman, a drunk, a devil with a beard. Stories leaked of orgies, of seductions, of Rasputin's wild appetite for women, including noble women and nuns. And always the Tsarina was at the center of it all. The rumors were endless. Was he her lover, her puppet master? Had he cast a spell over her for a society already teetering on the edge of revolution? The idea that a dirty mystic from Siberia was whispering in the Empress's ear was too much to bearing. The early hours of July 17, 1918, the Romanov family was led to a basement room in the Ipatiev house in Yekaterinburg. Tsar Nicholas II, Tsarina Alexandra, their 5 children, and 4 loyal servants were told they were being moved for safety. But it was a lie. Moments later, a firing squad entered. Chaos followed. Bullets bounced off hidden jewels sewn into the daughters' dresses. Some were stabbed when the bullets failed. No one survived. News of the execution spread slowly, but among monarchists and the faithful, it didn't end in horror. It began in reverence. The family was seen as innocent victims sacrificed during a time of chaos. Over the years, this brutal death turned into something sacred. Icons appeared. Prayers were whispered. To many, the Romanovs became more than royals. They became martyrs, holy sufferers in a godless revolution. After their execution in 1918, the Romanov family faded from political relevance. But in death, something strange began to take shape. By the year 2000, the Russian Orthodox Church canonized Tsar Nicholas II, his wife Alexandra, and their 5 children as passion bearers, a title given to those who suffer with Christian humility and grace. They were not called martyrs in the traditional sense, but they were no longer just victims of revolution. They had become spiritual symbols for some Russians. This was not enough. A fringe movement began to grow quiet at first. They believed Nicholas and Alexandra were more than saints. They were divine figures chosen by God. This belief became known as Sarabozi, meaning the Tsar is God. It's a deeply controversial idea, even within the church itself. Supporters claim that Nicholas and Alexandra's suffering, especially the murder of their innocent children, gave them a divine role in Russia's spiritual destiny. Underground groups, breakaway churches, and devoted followers began to pray to the Romanov, not just in remembrance, but in hope. Hope for healing, hope for justice, and perhaps hope for the return of a sacred monarchy. In modern times, the cult had outlived the empire. While most of the world moved on from the fall of the Romanovs, some didn't. In the shadows, far from the pages of official history books, small groups began to form. Hidden societies, quiet orders, people who didn't just admire the last Tsar and Tsarina, they worshipped them. Some of these groups weren't part of the official Russian Orthodox Church. They created their own rituals, their own saints, and at the center of it all stood Alexandra and Nicholas, seen not as victims of history, but as holy figures chosen to suffer for the sins of an empire. These beliefs weren't public. In fact, many kept them secret for decades, fearing ridicule, arrest, or worse. After the fall of the Soviet Union, something changed. The silence broke. Every year on the night of July 16, pilgrims gathered in Yekaterinburg, the very city where the Romanov family was executed in 1918. They walked through the forest holding candles, whispering prayers. Some walked barefoot as a sign of humility. Others weep as they passed the site once known as Ipatiev House. The original execution house was torn down by the Soviets in the late 1970s, hoping to erase its power, but it didn't work. In its place now stands the Church on the Blood, an enormous cathedral built to honor the Tsar's family. For many, this is just a place of mourning, but for others, it's a shrine, a holy site. a destination for spiritual rebirth. Behind these quiet pilgrimages are secretive sects, unofficial churches that broke away from mainstream orthodoxy. Some of them preach a belief known as Tsaribozhi, the idea that the Tsar was not just a ruler, but a divine being. Alexandra, in their view, was his suffering queen, martyr in her own right. These sects operate in silence. Their members don't post online, they don't march in the streets, but they gather in homes, forests, and hidden chapels. They light candles, read forbidden prayers, and believe that the blood of the royal family holds sacred power. It's a world the state doesn't officially recognize, a faith the church doesn't approve of, but still it grows there. As something unsettling about this cult. And it's not just the prayers or secret gatherings, it's the obsession with death at its core. The cult surrounding Tsarina Alexandra isn't about life or hope, it's about suffering, about pain, about sacrifice. Her followers don't just admire her, they worship the way she died. Slowly, tragically, and in silence, they believe her pain had meaning, that her death and the deaths of her children were redemptive. They see it as a kind of holy offering, cleansing Russia through royal blood. This idea fits into a much older Russian belief system. For centuries, suffering has been seen as a path to spiritual purity. Saints were admired not because they were powerful, but because they suffered in silence. Alexandra's story taps directly into that belief. But this cult doesn't just look backward, it stares coldly at the present. Many of its followers resent the modern world. They see democracy, technology, and freedom not as progress, but as poison. Some even believe that Russia lost its soul the day the royal family was killed. And it gets darker. This obsession with sacrifice and holy suffering has echoes in other dangerous movements. There are fringe Orthodox groups in Russia today who mix nationalism, religion, and even conspiracy theories. Some deny science, reject modern medicine, and worship past rulers like saints. During the COVID-19 pandemic, similar groups refused treatment, claiming only faith could save them. This is why the cult of the Tsarina feels so dangerous. It's not just a memory of the past, it's a warning. Behind the candles and icons lies a belief that pain is sacred and that death can be holy, and in the wrong hands, that belief can become a weapon. In modern Russia, the image of Tsarina Alexandra has taken on a strange new life. To some, she is more than just a tragic queen from a lost empire. She has become a symbol, quiet, devout, and deeply loyal. Ultranationalists and royalists often paint her as the perfect Russian woman, graceful, obedient, and devoted to God and family. In their eyes, her suffering was not weakness, it was sacred. Some traditionalist groups now use her story to promote ideas about faith, family, and order. She is shown as the ideal of femininity, a martyr who stood by her husband to the end. Her canonization by the Russian Orthodox Church has only deepened this belief. Icons of Alexandra now sit beside saints in some churches. This devotion fits neatly within the growing partnership between the Kremlin and the Orthodox Church. Russia's leaders often speak of spiritual strength and holy suffering ideas that match Alexandra's tragic life. The line between history, faith, and politics begins to blur beneath the surface. Her cult still lingers, quiet, reverent, but watching closely. And in today's Russia, where past and present often mix, her ghost still walks through palaces, churches, and the halls of power. A queen lost her throne. A family met a violent end. And from that blood, a strange kind of worship was born. What began as personal tragedy grew into something far more complex, a royal cult, shaped by mysticism, suffering, and the hunger for meaning in chaotic times. Tsarina Alexandra was once hated by many. Now she's venerated by some as a saint, even a silent symbol of holy power. But we have to ask, is this really just religious reverence? Or has it become something more, something darker, a myth that masks fear? A cult that feeds off sorrow? A shadow that still lingers behind the curtain of modern Russia? So, what do you think? Was the cult of the Tsarina born out of love or obsession? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We read everyone. And if you enjoyed this dive into history's strange and hidden corners, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to History Screen for more stories that time tried to erase. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next tale.